Hello, hello. I think we are live. We are going to check the audio real quick just to make sure everything is going okay. Looks pretty good so far. Let me start some music while we wait. A little bit of, okay, audio's coming through. We have some music. And let me turn off the caption here. All right, cool. Well, welcome folks. This is a pretty last minute live stream. Just wanted to showcase one of the projects that I'm working on. Just like a little bit here and there, but actually spent most of yesterday building a initial prototype for this. So excited to show a little bit about what I'm building. So let me actually just go ahead and jump right in and share my screen. Okay, so here is, this is a little small. Open this a little bigger. There it is. Okay. So I'm building something I'm calling the Caregivers app. And I have a little bit of a README that kind of describes the project in summary. Kind of an experimental project, building a native web app, hopefully also on mobile at some point, but for now just on the web. Native to FHIR, and ideally for caregivers. And the problem this app is aiming to solve is, put simply, coordinated care for aging family members. And that could take many forms in terms of just coordinating care, just basic tasks, but also some of the more difficult challenges of sharing information between caregivers and also other healthcare entities. So one in particular here that I'm targeting is the Aging and Disability Resource Centers, or ADRC. And the challenge there is a lot of folks apply for Medicare, Medicaid, nursing home, assisted living facility resources through this. And the process seems to be quite dated. Lots of manual forms, things that need to be filled out, but also filled out and coordinated between patients, caregivers, the patient's doctors, and also these state, local, or federal agencies like this. So ideally, this app can solve the challenge of sending information seamlessly across all groups in as easy a way as possible. So that's the main challenge. The app has a couple of parts. It was pretty fun because it was the first time learning how to use React and JavaScript. But I've been learning different pieces of this and put this together finally into one app. So the stack behind this is Fast API for the web framework using Python. I'm pretty comfortable with this in the last few months. The database behind it is the Google Healthcare API Firestore. So all the different things that happen here will get deposited into the Firestore as FHIR resources. And I created my own designs for how I want to implement those FHIR resources. The front end is some basic React and JavaScript. And then I've been learning just a tiny bit about Google's Material UI. So a lot of the designs come from that nice library. And then everything at the very end is just Dockerized. So both the back end, the front end, and then the entire web app is Dockerized into a container that I can run, and then I can deploy the web app. So here's what I completed so far. Is the features. I'll actually show the web app so it makes more sense. But this is what I'll show later. Is just basic your CRUD operations for patients. So we can create new patients. We can read all the patients that exist. We can update a patient and we can delete a patient. And then afterwards, if we ever need to update, also implemented the ability to pre-populate data. So it pulls back all the data first, so you don't have to retype things when you're updating. And then the most important part that will be next is this patient summary view. It's not fully implemented. It's just kind of the beginning steps of showing what that could look like. A couple of things for the future, things like CRUD operations for caregivers. So the idea is that you have a family member or a patient, and there's going to be a group of individuals, usually like friends and family, that'll be taking care of someone. And so making that a first-class citizen of adding those patients or caregivers in there, so you can kind of coordinate care for the patient that you're caring for. And then this is probably the most helpful piece, which is all of those dated questionnaires from the Aging and Resource Disability Center. I think there was like Form 3008, things like that. It's just a lot of different things. I'm going to start implementing some of those questionnaires from there. And then the last piece is just creating a FHIR implementation guide for all the different FHIR resources that are used. So a very FHIR native focused web app aimed to solve this problem. And hopefully, if this is built in the right way, we can modernize all the ADRCs around the country to adopt something like this. Okay, so that's kind of like the background. I can show the web app now, just so you see what it looks like. Let me make sure it's running. Let's see. I don't think it is running. Okay, let me show my screen. I can just run it. 1 second here. I'm going to switch my screen. Stop. And I will share. There we go. So here's my app. We got your backend. Here's your Fast API. We have different patient services that implements the CRED operations. This is interacting with the Google Health API. The main part here, different models for entering information. That's your backend. And then here's your front end. Here's the different components that you're about to see. Updating, summary, the patient list, the home screen, and adding patients. And then both of these are in a single Docker file that I'm going to run now. So let's see, Docker compose. Let's get this part running. All right, there it is. So it's building my app, both my front end and the back end right now. Once it's done, we can go ahead and interact with it. This is all local right now. So both front end and back end is running locally, but everything will get stored into a FHIR store, which maybe I'll pull that up just so you guys can see what that looks like as well. All this is loading my image or building my image. Local healthcare API. Okay, cool. Now that works. So the app is run, so you can see it's deployed. Localhost 3000 is where my front end is, and it will interact with my back end, which is on port 8000. So now I'm going to tab over and show you what this app looks like. Let me stop sharing. And I will share the app. And here is the app. So this is the home screen. And here's our different interactions. I'm going to show you first adding a new patient. Oops. So we add a new patient. Everything comes out. So let's add a new patient of Joe Dirt. Let's do 15, 1988, 23 Testing Street, Baltimore MD. Just make up a zip code and country. Make up a phone number, and then make up joedirt@gmail.com. Okay, so now this implements adding a patient. So now we have Joe Dirt. It says patient added successfully. And what I'm going to actually do is show you the backend at the same time. So this may make sense. So let me actually share this tab. This is the Caregivers app, the FHIR store. So every single time we perform an interaction on that web app, it will update this database. So right now I have the Google Healthcare API that deposits to this FHIR store here. And what I'm going to do is just show you. Here it is. So we just added a patient. And here it is. Here's that patient. I implemented all the data that we just added, Joe Dirt, phone number, email. So now you can see it wrote the patient to the FHIR store. Go back over here. I have a function. If I go back to the home screen, you can actually view patients on the top right. So here's all the patients that I have in my FHIR store. So you see these 4 patients, and there's different operations you can do. So you have the update, delete, and select. So Joe Dirt, I can go back in, and if you update, it'll go ahead and pull up all the data from the FHIR store. So it performs a get to find everything. So pre-populate. So if I wanted to just update like the last name to say, I don't know, say John Doe instead. So we update the patient, that's updated. You can see that they're updated here. If I go back to the FHIR store, this is Joe Dirt, hit refresh, and their name is also updated here. So that's pretty nice. So everything's updated. It's pretty quick. So that's the update function, pre-populates. The next thing is I can go ahead and even delete. So I have my delete. Delete quickly just deletes it from the FHIR store. Go back over here, and that patient is deleted from the FHIR store. Pretty simple. And the last piece I'll show, so we have your update, deletes, reads. What's going to be a first-class citizen is the individual patient views, because this app isn't meant to have like multiple patients, unless this is for the ADRCs, where they can like review all the different forms from patients. It's more so for caregivers, so ideally it's just going to be one patient. So the view that I'm going to be working on next is like, let's say FHIR, we want to manage the patient or caregivers. If you hit select, it'll bring you into this kind of patient summary view. So you have all their details. So everyone who's caring for a particular patient will know what's the current list of meds, their upcoming visits, allergies, and problems. And I think a big piece here is like with visits. So you may need to coordinate different visits between the caregivers, and you can have some type of feature that will be able to tag different caregivers so they are aware of who's responsible for what. And then the caregivers will all be listed down here eventually. So that's like what I'm working on right now. I think the next piece is having some type of feature that will allow you to fill out those questionnaires from the ADRC and then submit it to the doctors and then send it to the ADRCs themselves for review to process those Medicare, Medicaid applications. But that is it. That's a quick prototype that I was working on yesterday. If you have any questions, let me know.